Africa, 1905. The land groaned under the weight of empire. In German East Africa, today's Tanzania, men, women, and children were forced into brutal labor. Whips cracked, villages starved. Cotton fields spread like chains across the land. But from the shadows, a whisper spread, a whisper of holy water. They called it Maji, sacred water blessed by the spirits. Water that, when sprinkled on the body, would turn German bullets into harmless drops of rain. The people believed. The people rose. And what followed was not just a rebellion. It was a holy war, a desperate cry for freedom that would shake the empire. This is the story of the Maji Maji rebellion, Africa's war of faith against one of Europe's deadliest colonial powers. But before we dive in, I have one request. If you love untold stories of history, please watch this video till the end. The betrayals, the miracles, and the tragedies of this rebellion will leave you speechless. And while you're here, hit the like button. Subscribe to Whisper the Past. Share your thoughts in the comments. It only takes a few seconds, but it means the world. It keeps us alive so we can keep history alive. And when you're done, check out our other videos, because history is never what you were taught in school. By the late 19th century, the scramble for Africa had carved the continent into empires. For Germany, its crown jewel was German East Africa, vast land stretching from the coast of the Indian Ocean deep into the interior. But empire came at a price, and the people paid it. The Germans forced villagers to abandon food crops and instead grow cotton, not for survival, but for export to Europe's factories. Entire families were dragged into fields. Those who refused were beaten, whipped, or executed. Taxes were imposed, payable only in German currency, which meant the people had to work for German settlers just to survive. And so, starvation spread. Fields once rich with millet and cassava lay barren, replaced by cotton that no one could eat. Mothers wept as children wasted away. German rule was not just oppressive, it was unsustainable. And like dry grass under a burning sun, the land was ready for fire. Amid the despair of German East Africa, a man rose from obscurity. His name was Kinjeketile, a spirit medium from the Matumbi Hills. Kinjeketile was no soldier, no politician, but he carried something greater, faith. One night, it is said, he disappeared into the waters of the river Rufiji. Villagers believed he was taken by the spirits. Days later, he emerged, eyes blazing with revelation. He spoke of a sacred water, Maji, water infused with the power of the ancestors, blessed to shield the people. He told them, "Sprinkle this on your body, and the white man's bullets will turn to rain." The message spread like wildfire across the south and interior. Word traveled from hut to hut, village to village, from the Matumbi, the Ngoni, the Yao, the Zaramo. People who spoke different tongues, who worshiped different spirits, all heard the same call. For the first time, unity was born, not under a chief, not under a king, but under a prophet and his sacred water. Kinjeketile was no ordinary man. His voice carried conviction. His presence lit hope where there had been only despair. For those crushed by German whips, he offered not just resistance, but protection. The land stirred. An army was forming. An army not of muskets or cannons, but of spears, bows, and faith in Maji. By July 1905, the first sparks of rebellion burst into flame. The Matumbi people struck first, tearing up cotton fields, rejecting the forced labor that starved them. German overseers were attacked. Outposts were burned. From there, the rebellion spread. The Ngoni warriors of the south joined in, famed for their ferocity in battle. The Yao of the highlands, the Zaramo near the coast, even Swahili-speaking traders, all rose together under banner of Maji. This was no small uprising. It was a movement. Tens of thousands answered the call. Some carried old muskets. Most bore only spears, clubs, and bows. But every warrior carried a vial of Maji, water sprinkled on their bodies, believed to be stronger than any German gun. For the first time, the German Empire faced a rebellion that was not a single tribe, not a single region, but a coalition of peoples united by faith and fury. And when the first battles came, the ground shook with their numbers. At first, The rebellion swept across the land like wildfire. German outposts, once symbols of fear, fell to furious crowds of villagers. Soldiers, unprepared for the sheer numbers, were cut down or forced to flee. Cotton fields, the hated symbol of forced labor, were set ablaze, smoke rising across the horizon. The Ngoni warriors, hardened from generations of warfare, marched with terrifying discipline. Their spears flashed in the sun. Their chants echoed through the valleys. For a moment, it seemed the prophecy was true. German bullets did not stop them. Even as comrades fell, the Maji soldiers pressed on, fearless, believing the sacred water had made them invincible. Villages erupted in celebration. Drums pounded. Dancers stamped their feet. For the first time in years, the people of German East Africa felt free. The empire, that mighty empire of Kaiser Wilhelm, was shaken. This was no local riot. It was a holy war. But empires did not fall so easily. The Germans were ruthless, disciplined, and heavily armed. When news of the rebellion reached the coastal cities, reinforcements were rushed in. Trains and steamships carried soldiers deeper into the interior. Commanders dismissed the Maji fighters as savages with sticks. Yet, they quickly learned this was an organized resistance, one that could not be crushed overnight. Still, the Germans had machine guns. They had artillery. They had modern rifles that could fire 10 times before a warrior even reloaded a musket. And unlike the rebels, the Germans could rely on supplies on the coast and alliances with some local chiefs who sided with them out of fear or rivalry. The stage was set for a brutal confrontation. The first great battle came on the plains of southern Tanzania. Thousands of Maji fighters advanced in waves, chanting, singing, their bodies sprinkled with sacred water. Spears raised, they charged like a tidal wave against the German lines. And then the gun spoke. Rifles cracked. Machine guns rattled. Warriors fell by the hundreds, then by the thousands. The sacred water did not stop the bullets. Still, they came, again and again. The earth turned red. The air filled with smoke and dust. Entire regiments of villagers were cut down before they could even reach the German positions. The miracle of Maji, the belief in bulletproof water, shattered under the roar of German gunfire. Yet, the people did not surrender. They fought on, knowing death was certain, because slavery, hunger, and humiliation were worse than dying free. Defeat in battle did not end the uprising. Instead, it enraged the Germans. Determined to crush the rebellion once and for all, they unleashed a scorched earth campaign. Villages suspected of aiding rebels were burned to the ground. Fields of millet and cassava, the people's only food, were destroyed. Wells were poisoned. Grain stores looted. But this was not only war. It was starvation as a weapon. German commanders declared, the people must be destroyed through hunger. And so, famine spread. Entire communities, once vibrant, now wandered the plains as skeletons. Mothers cradled starving children. Fathers, unable to feed their families, picked up spears one last time, charging to certain death. The rebellion, once fueled by faith, was now a desperate struggle for survival. The rebellion had begun with prophecy, with the promise of sacred water that could shield men from bullets. But as villages starved, as warriors fell, faith began to fracture. Some accused the prophets of betrayal. Others said the people had not believed strongly enough. Still others whispered that the Germans' guns were not bullets at all, but fire from devils. Kinjeketile Ngwale, the prophet who had given people hope, had been captured and executed early in the war. Yet his spirit lingered, a haunting reminder of both the promise and the pain of rebellion. By 1907, the Great Uprising had collapsed. The people were broken, scattered, starving. But even in defeat, the rebellion carried a power the Germans could not erase. When the smoke cleared, as many as 300,000 people were dead. Not only warriors, but women, children, and elders. The land of southern Tanzania was scarred. Villages gone, fields barren, families shattered forever. The Germans had won militarily, but they had also revealed the brutality of empire, a system that ruled not by justice, but by terror. And yet, something else had survived. The people remembered. The story of the Maji Maji spread across Africa, whispered from village to village. from generation to generation. The lesson was clear. Africa would not kneel forever. The Maji Maji rebellion was crushed, but it was not in vain. It showed that Africans from dozens of ethnic groups could unite against a common enemy. It proved that colonial power could be resisted, even when the cost was unimaginable. Years later, when independence movements swept across Africa in the 20th century, leaders looked back to the Maji Maji. They saw not just tragedy, but inspiration. The first great fire of resistance in East Africa. And today, in Tanzania, the memory endures. Statues honor the fallen. Songs remember the sacrifice. Children lure the men and women who stood against an empire, armed with nothing but faith, courage, and a dream of freedom. The Maji Maji rebellion was called a failure by the colonizers, but history tells a different story. It was a spark of defiance, the cry of dignity, the proof that even in the darkest times, the spirit of freedom cannot be silenced, because empires rise and fall, but memory endures. If this story of the Maji Maji moved you, help us keep these forgotten histories alive. Like this video. Subscribe to Whisper the Past. Share your thoughts in the comments. It only takes a few seconds, but it keeps memory alive, one story at a time.